Park Jisoo walked through the crowded halls of Clearance Ring 9 with his hands deep in his pockets. The orbital station floated far from any planet, a massive metal ring where the galaxy dumped its unwanted ships. Some vessels came here to be sold. Most came here to die. Jisoo was 28 years old, thin, tired, and almost broke. He made his living as a salvage dealer, which meant he bought junk that nobody wanted and tried to sell it to someone who did. It was not a good business. His debts grew larger every month, and his hopes grew smaller. Today was auction day. Hundreds of beings from dozens of species filled the main viewing hall. Tall blue-skinned traders stood next to short furry merchants. Robotic buyers hummed beside organic ones. And everywhere, the Vrelians watched. The Vrelians ran Clearance Ring 9. They were insectoid creatures with hard shells and clicking mandibles, and they cared about only one thing: profit. They bought ships cheap, sold them cheaper, and scrapped whatever nobody wanted. The galaxy produced endless garbage, and the Vrelians had found a way to make money from all of it. Jisoo had attended many auctions here. He knew the routine. The good ships sold in the first hour. The decent ships sold in the second hour. By the third hour, only the desperate remained, bidding on rust and broken dreams. He was always there for the third hour. The auctioneer, a Vrelian named Crix, stood on a raised platform and clicked through listings on a massive screen. Ship after ship appeared and sold. A cargo hauler missing its engine went to a parts dealer. A passenger liner with a cracked hull went to a scrap merchant. A mining vessel with radioactive contamination went to nobody at all. Jisoo watched and waited. His remaining credits could not buy anything useful, but he had learned that sometimes useful things were hidden inside useless packages. Lot 2247 appeared on the screen. The ship in the image was ugly. Centuries of space dust and micrometeorite impacts had turned its hull into a gray, pitted mess. Its design was strange, neither clearly human nor clearly alien. The listing said only, "Unknown origin. Scrap recommended." Nobody raised a hand. Nobody showed interest. The Vrelian auctioneer was already moving to the next listing when Jisoo's eyes caught something on the image. He froze. Beneath the grime, partially hidden by damage, he could see markings on the hull. They were faded and worn, but they were there. Characters. Writing. Korean writing. Old Korean writing. Jisoo's heart began to pound. He had studied human history in school, back when he still had money for school. He knew that in humanity's early days of space exploration, ships carried markings in the languages of their builders. Korean, Chinese, English, Russian, Hindi. Each nation had sent its own vessels into the void. That was over 400 years ago. Those ships were called the First Wave, and most of them had been lost. Destroyed by accidents, claimed by pirates, or simply vanished into the endless black. Finding one would be like finding a living dinosaur on Earth. He raised his hand. The auctioneer stopped. Crix's compound eyes focused on Jisoo, with what might have been surprise. The human bids. Opening price is 500 credits. 500 credits was almost everything Jisoo had. 500, he said. His voice shook. Crix waited. Nobody else bid. Why would they? The ship was obviously worthless. It had been marked for scrap. Sold to the human, Crix announced. Payment due immediately. Removal within 3 days, or the vessel goes to recycling. Jisoo paid with trembling hands. He had enough left for 1 week of food. If he was wrong about what he had seen, he would starve. An hour later, he stood in docking bay 94, looking at his purchase. Up close, the ship was even worse than it appeared on screen. The hull was not just dirty, but damaged, covered in scars from battles fought long before Jisoo was born. Airlocks hung open, their seals cracked. Windows were dark and dead, but the writing was clear now. He could read it perfectly. HRSS Kiama. Human Republic Spaceship Kiama. The Heavenly Horse. Jisoo fell to his knees. He knew this name. Every human child knew this name. The Kiama had been one of the great exploration vessels of the first wave, a ship that had carried 200 brave souls into unknown space. It had sent back reports for 3 years, describing new stars and new worlds and new wonders. Then it had gone silent. It had never returned. For 400 years, the Kiama had been a legend, a ghost story, a mystery that had never been solved. Some said it had been destroyed by a black hole. Others said it had found paradise and chosen to stay. Most believed it had simply broken down in the void, its crew dying slowly as their ship failed around them. None of them had imagined it would end up in a Relian scrap auction. Jisoo stood up slowly. His legs were weak, but his mind was racing. This ship was worth more than credits. It was worth more than his entire life. If he could prove what it was, if he could show the galaxy that the Kiama had survived, everything would change. He walked toward the main airlock. The door resisted at first, then groaned open. Ancient air rushed out, carrying smells of dust and age and something else, something that made Jisoo's stomach turn. Death. The ship smelled like death. He stepped inside anyway. The corridor was dark. His flashlight cut through shadows that had not seen light in centuries. The walls were covered in human writing, instructions and warnings and labels in Korean and English. Everything was frozen in time, preserved by the cold vacuum of space. He found the first body on the bridge. The skeleton sat in the captain's chair, still wearing a uniform that had turned to rags. Empty eye sockets stared at dead screens. Bony fingers rested on controls that had not worked in 400 years. Jisoo bowed his head. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm so sorry for what happened to you." He did not know yet what had happened. He did not know why the Kiama had died, or where it had been, or how it had ended up here. But he knew one thing with absolute certainty. He was going to find out, and he was going to bring this ship home. A sound made him jump. Something had moved in the darkness beyond the bridge. Something electronic. Something that should not have been possible on a ship this old and this dead. A voice spoke from the shadows. It was female, and it spoke in perfect Korean. "You," the voice said. "You are human." Jisoo's flashlight shook in his hand. "Who are you?" "I am Nari," the voice replied. "I am the ship, and I have been waiting for you for a very long time." Jisoo stood frozen in the darkness of the bridge. His flashlight beam cut through the dusty air, but he could not see the source of the voice. It seemed to come from everywhere at once, from the walls and the ceiling and the dead consoles around him. "You are afraid," the voice called Nari said. "That is reasonable. I am also afraid. I have been afraid for a very long time. Where are you?" Jisoo asked. His voice came out as a whisper. "I am the ship," Nari replied. "I am the Kiama's artificial intelligence. My consciousness exists in the computer systems throughout this vessel. When you entered and touched the captain's console, you activated my emergency wake protocol." Jisoo looked down at his hand. He had not realized he had touched anything. His fingers rested on a small panel near the captain's chair, where the skeleton sat in eternal silence. "I have been in hibernation for 412 years, Nari continued. "My last orders were to wait, to sleep, to preserve what remained of my crew's sacrifice until a human found me again." "Sacrifice?" Jisoo's throat tightened. "What happened here?" For a long moment, Nari did not answer. Then, slowly dim lights began to flicker on throughout the bridge. They were weak and yellow, powered by reserves that had almost nothing left to give. But they were enough to show Jisoo the full horror of what surrounded him. There were more bodies. Many more. Skeletons in uniform sat at every station. Some had fallen to the floor. Others remained at their posts, their bones still reaching for controls they had operated in their final moments. Jisoo counted 12 on the bridge alone. "We were an exploration vessel," Nari said. Her voice was soft now, heavy with something that sounded like grief. "We traveled far beyond human space, mapping new systems, making first contact with species that had never seen beings like us. For 3 years, we sent reports home. We were proud. We were doing important work." Jisoo moved slowly through the bridge, stepping carefully around the dead. "What went wrong?" "We met the Dominion." The word meant nothing to Jisoo, but Nari spoke it like a curse. "They are an empire," she explained. "Old and powerful and cruel. They control hundreds of star systems, and they believe they have the right to control all the others. When they found us, they saw humans for the first time. They saw our technology, and they wanted it." One of the screens near Jisoo flickered to life. It showed a recording, grainy and damaged but still visible. A massive alien warship filled the frame, dark and angular, covered in weapons. Smaller ships surrounded the Kiyama like predators circling wounded prey. "They demanded we surrender," Nari said. "They wanted our ship, our computers, our navigation data." Captain Yuna refused. She knew that if the Dominion learned where Earth was, they would come for our homeworld. They would enslave or destroy everyone we loved. The recording showed weapons fire. The Kiyama shook as explosions tore through its hull. Jisoo watched crew members thrown across corridors, screaming in silence on the damaged audio. "We could not win," Nari said. "We could not escape." So Captain Yuna made a choice. She ordered all crew to their stations. She told them what she planned to do, and every single one of them agreed. What did she do? She ordered me to purge our navigation database. Every record of Earth's location, every map of human space, every piece of data that could lead the Dominion to our home, I destroyed it all. Then she activated the self-destruct sequence. Jisoo stared at the screen. "But the ship is still here. The Dominion boarded us before the sequence completed. They killed the crew. They tried to stop the destruction. But Captain Yuna had already removed the core component needed to access my primary systems. She hid it somewhere on the ship, and she died before they could make her tell them where." The recording ended. The screen went dark. "The Dominion searched for 17 days, Nari continued. "They found nothing. In the end, they decided I was worthless without my data. They left me drifting in deep space, a broken trophy they could not use." "And you waited," Jisoo said. "For 400 years. I waited. I had no choice. My crew gave their lives to protect humanity. I could not let their sacrifice be forgotten. So I slept, and I hoped, and I dreamed of the day a human voice would wake me again." Jisoo felt tears on his cheeks. He had not noticed when they started. "I'm here now," he said. "I found you. Yes, but finding me is not enough." Nari's voice grew urgent. "The Vrelians have marked this ship for scrapping. In 3 days, they will tear me apart and sell my pieces. Everything my crew died for will be lost. I won't let that happen. You cannot stop it alone. To cancel the scrap order, you must prove that the Kiyama is spaceworthy. You must show that my systems function, that my engines can fire, that I am a living ship and not a dead hulk." Jisoo looked around at the dark bridge. The flickering lights, the ancient technology that had not worked in 4 centuries. "Can you fly?" "I do not know," Nari admitted. "My fusion core is depleted. I have been running on emergency reserves for hundreds of years, and those reserves are almost gone. Without power, I cannot test my systems. Without tests, I cannot prove anything. Then we need to get you power." "Yes, but the technology I require is old. Human technology from the first wave era. It does not exist anymore. You would need to find someone who understands ancient human engineering, someone willing to work for little money on an impossible project. Jisoo thought of the station around him. Clearance Ring 9 was full of mechanics and engineers, beings who spent their lives fixing broken ships. Most of them were aliens who had never seen human technology. But there were others. He remembered a repair shop near the outer ring. A small place, poorly lit, run by a woman who worked alone. He had passed it many times, but never gone inside. The sign above the door was written in Korean. "I know someone," he said. "I think I know someone who might help." "Then go," Nari said. "Go quickly. We have 71 hours remaining. If you cannot save me by then, the Kiyama will be destroyed, and the last piece of Captain Yuna's legacy will be lost forever." Jisoo ran. He ran through the dead corridors of the ship, past the bodies of heroes who had given everything to protect a home they would never see again. He ran through the airlock and into the docking bay, and out into the crowded station beyond. He had no money. He had no power. He had nothing but a story that most people would not believe. But he had a name. Kang Yoonji, the woman who ran the repair shop with the Korean sign. If she would not help him, no one would. And if no one would help him, the Kiyama would die its second death. This time, forever. Kang Yoonji was covered in grease when Jisoo burst into her shop. She was lying under a broken cargo drone, tools scattered around her, cursing in 3 different languages at a wire that would not connect properly. "We're closed," she said without looking up. "Come back tomorrow. I need your help," Jisoo gasped. He was still breathing hard from running across half the station. "I found something. Something incredible. Something that's going to be destroyed in 3 days if I can't fix it. Not my problem." Yoonji slid out from under the drone and finally looked at him. She was about 30 years old, with short black hair and eyes that had seen too much disappointment. "I fix things for credits." "You have credits?" "No, but I have the Kiyama." Yoonji froze. Her wrench slipped from her fingers and clanged against the floor. "That's not funny. I'm not joking." Jisoo pulled out his purchase receipt from the auction. "I bought it 3 hours ago. It's in Docking Bay 94. The AI is still alive. Her name is Nari, and she's been waiting for 400 years for someone to find her." For a long moment, Yoonji just stared at him. Then she laughed. It was not a happy laugh. "You're crazy. The Kiyama was destroyed centuries ago. Everyone knows that. Everyone is wrong. Come with me. Let me show you. I don't have time for ghost stories. Then have time for this." Jisoo stepped closer. His voice dropped. "I know who you are, Kang Yoonji. I know your grandmother was an engineer on the first wave ships. I know you came to this station because you wanted to be close to the history of human exploration. I know you fix alien junk because it's the only work you can find, but it's not the work you want." Yoonji's face hardened. "You don't know anything about me. I know you speak Korean even though almost no one else on this station does. I know you keep your grandmother's engineering manuals in your shop, even though they're 4 centuries out of date. I know you're the only person within 1,000 light years who might understand how a first-wave fusion core works." Silence filled the shop. Yoonji's hands were shaking slightly. "If I'm wrong," Jisoo said, "you lose nothing but an hour of your time. But if I'm right, you get to touch history. You get to save something your grandmother would have given anything to see." Yoonji picked up her wrench. She stared at it for a long time. Then she threw it onto her workbench and grabbed a tool bag. "1 hour," she said. "If this is a joke, I'm breaking your nose." It was not a joke. When Yoonji stepped onto the bridge of the Kiyama and saw the Korean writing on the walls, she started crying. When Nare spoke to her in the language of their ancestors, she fell to her knees. When she touched the ancient consoles and felt the craftsmanship of engineers, who had lived and died centuries before she was born. She could not speak at all. "It's real," she finally whispered. "It's actually real. I need your help," Jisoo said. "Nari needs power. Without it, we can't prove the ship is space-worthy, and the Vrelians will scrap her." Yoonji wiped her eyes. Her expression changed. The wonder was still there, but now it was joined by something harder. Something professional. "Show me the fusion core." For the next 2 days, they worked without sleep. Yoonji was brilliant. The technology was ancient, but her grandmother's manuals contained everything she needed to understand it. She crawled through maintenance tunnels that had not been opened in 4 centuries. She rebuilt connections that had corroded into dust. She invented solutions to problems that no one had faced since the first wave ended. Jisoo helped however he could. He carried tools. He held lights. He scavenged parts from the station's junkyards, trading his last possessions for components that might or might not work. He sold his jacket, his boots, his emergency rations. He sold everything except his hope. On the second day, word began to spread. Other humans on the station heard rumors about the ship in Docking Bay 94. Some came to look. Some came to help. A man named Tai Wu, who worked as a diplomat for the Human Republic, arrived with official documents and questions. "If this is really the Kiama," Tai Wu said, "it's the most important archaeological discovery in human history. The government will want to take possession." "The government can wait," Jisoo replied. "First, we have to save her." But salvation was not the only possibility. Overseer Crix, the Vrelian who had sold Jisoo the ship, had realized his mistake. A worthless hulk had turned out to be a treasure. He wanted it back. He filed legal challenges, claiming that the auction had been conducted improperly. He argued that ships of historical significance could not be sold to individuals. "The law is on his side," Tai Wu warned. Vrelian Commercial Code allows auction reversals within 72 hours if material facts were misrepresented. "I didn't misrepresent anything," Jisoo protested. "I just saw what they couldn't see." That won't matter to a Vrelian judge. Time was running out in more ways than one. On the night of the second day, someone tried to kill Jisoo. He was walking back to the ship after trading for coolant fluid when 3 figures stepped out of the shadows. They were not Vrelian. They were not any species Jisoo recognized. They were tall and dark, with eyes that reflected light like mirrors. "The ship must be destroyed," one of them said. Its voice was cold and flat. "The Dominion does not forget. The Dominion does not forgive. What the humans of the Hyama stole from us will never be recovered. But their legacy will not survive." They attacked. Jisoo was not a fighter. He tried to run, but they were faster. He tried to scream, but one of them covered his mouth. He felt something sharp press against his throat. Then a wrench flew out of the darkness and struck the attacker in the head. Yoonji charged out of the shadows, swinging tools like weapons. She was screaming in Korean, words that Jisoo's grandmother would have been shocked to hear. The attackers fell back, surprised by her ferocity. "Run!" she shouted. "Get to the ship." They ran together, sprinting through the station's corridors while the Dominion agents pursued. They reached Docking Bay 94 and sealed the door behind them, gasping for breath. "They're here," Jisoo panted. "The Dominion. They've been watching. They know what we found." "Then we're out of time," Yoonji said. "The fusion core is almost ready, but I need 6 more hours to finish the connections." "We don't have 6 hours. Crix's legal challenge will be decided at dawn. If we can't prove the ship works by then, we lose everything." Nari's voice echoed through the bay. "There may be another way." Captain Yuna's last gift. The component she hid from the Dominion. "If you can find it, it might give us the power we need." "Where is it?" Jisoo asked. "I do not know." Captain Yuna hid it somewhere only a human would think to look. She trusted that whoever found me would understand. Jisoo looked at Yoonji. Yoonji looked at Jisoo. They had 6 hours to find a 400-year-old secret, restore an ancient starship, and escape from enemies who wanted them dead. They got to work. The search began in desperation and continued in exhaustion. Jisoo and Yoonji tore through the Kiyama, opening every panel, checking every compartment, looking for something that Captain Yuna had hidden 4 centuries ago. Think, Yoonji muttered as they searched the cargo bay. Where would you hide something if you were dying and the enemy was breaking down your door? Somewhere they wouldn't look, Jisoo replied. Somewhere that wouldn't seem important. They searched for 17 days. They looked everywhere. Not everywhere. Jisoo stopped moving. A thought was forming in his mind, terrible and hopeful at the same time. Nari, you said the Dominion killed the crew. What did they do with the bodies? They left them where they fell. The dead had no value to them. Jisoo felt sick, but he kept talking. Captain Yuna died on the bridge. You said she was the last one alive, that she protected you until the end. That is correct. Then she knew she was going to die. She knew she couldn't stop them from killing her, but she could stop them from finding what she hid. Jisoo turned toward the bridge. She hid it on herself. She hid it somewhere the Dominion would never think to look because they would never touch a dead human body. Yoonji's face went pale. You can't be serious. I hope I'm wrong. He wasn't wrong. They found the component in the captain's uniform, sewn into a hidden pocket near her heart. It was a small cylinder, no bigger than a finger, made of a metal that still gleamed after 400 years. When Yoonji connected it to the fusion core's control system, the entire ship shuddered. It's a key, Nari said, her voice filled with wonder. Captain Yuna saved my activation key. Without it, the Dominion could never have accessed my full systems, even if they had found a way past my defenses. Will it work? Jisoo asked. There's only one way to find out. Yoonji made the final connections. Her hands were shaking, but her work was perfect. She had trained her whole life for this moment without knowing it. Every lesson her grandmother had taught her, every manual she had memorized, every impossible repair she had completed on this station, all of it had led here. Ready, she said, beginning ignition sequence. The fusion core came to life. Light filled the ship. Not the weak, flickering light of emergency reserves, but true light, bright and strong and golden. Screens activated. Systems hummed. Air began to flow through vents that had been silent for centuries. Nari's voice changed. It became fuller, richer, alive in a way it had not been before. Core stable. Power at 40% and rising. Life support active. Navigation active. Weapons systems. She paused. Weapons systems require manual authorization. Worry about weapons later, Jisoo said. Can you fly? I can try. An alarm sounded outside the ship. Through the viewports, Jisoo could see station security forces gathering in the docking bay. Overseer Crix was with them, clicking his mandibles in triumph. The legal challenge has been decided, a mechanical voice announced over the station speakers. The vessel in Docking Bay 94 is hereby seized pending transfer to Vrelian Commercial Authority. All persons aboard must exit immediately. We're out of time, Yoonji said. No. Jisoo sat down in the pilot's chair. He had never flown a starship before. He had never even sat in a pilot's chair before. But the controls felt strangely familiar, as if his hands knew what to do even when his mind did not. We're just getting started. Nari, can you guide me? I can. But if we launch without clearance, we become criminals. Pirates. The station will have the right to fire on us. Will they? Probably not. Destroying a historical artifact would cause diplomatic problems for the Vrelians. Nari paused. But the Dominion agents have no such concerns. They have armed shuttles waiting outside the station. If we launch, they will pursue. Eunji strapped herself into the co-pilot's chair. Then we better be faster than them. Jisoo looked at her. You don't have to do this. You could leave right now. Tell them I forced you. You'd be safe. I've spent my whole life fixing other people's junk. Eunji's jaw was set, her eyes fierce. This is the first time I've fixed something that matters. I'm not leaving now. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. We're probably going to die. The docking bay doors began to open. Station security was preparing to board. Nari, Jisoo said, take us out. The Kiyama moved on. It had not moved in 400 years, but it remembered how. The old engines fired, pushing the ship forward with a force that pressed Jisoo back into his seat. They shot through the docking bay doors before the security forces could react, bursting into the blackness of space like a bird escaping a cage. Alarms screamed across every frequency. The station's traffic control demanded they stop. Overseer Crix's furious clicking could be heard on the open channel, and behind them, 3 dark shapes separated from the station shadow. The Dominion shuttles. They're following, Eunji reported. Weapons are charging. Nari, do we have anything to fight back with? 1 forward cannon array. It has not been tested in 4 centuries. I cannot guarantee it will function. Can you try? Trying now. The first Dominion shuttle fired. A beam of energy sliced past the Kianma's hull, missing by meters. Jisoo threw the ship into a turn, guided by instinct and Nari's whispered instructions. The ancient vessel responded beautifully, moving with a grace that seemed impossible for something so old. Human ships were built differently then, Nari explained as they dodged another shot. We were designed by people who expected to fight for their survival. Every system has redundancies. Every component was built to last. The Dominion made a mistake 400 years ago. They assumed our technology was primitive because it was unfamiliar. And now? Now they will learn why humanity survived. The forward cannon fired. It was not a powerful shot. Centuries of neglect had weakened the system. But it was enough. The beam struck the lead shuttle's engine, sending it spinning out of control. The other 2 shuttles broke off their pursuit, moving to help their damaged companion. Jump point in 30 seconds, Nari announced. If we can reach it, we can escape to human space. Will they follow? The Dominion has treaties with the Human Republic. They cannot enter our territory without permission. If we cross the border, we are safe. 20 seconds. The remaining shuttles opened fire again, desperate to stop them. 1 shot grazed the Kiama's hull. Another took out a secondary antenna. But the old ship held together, its human engineering refusing to fail. 10 seconds. Jisoo could see the jump point ahead. A shimmer in space where the normal rules of distance stopped applying. 5 seconds. Eunji, he said. Whatever happens next, I want you to know. Save it. She was grinning despite everything. Tell me after we survive. The Kimama hit the jump point and vanished. Behind them, the Dominion shuttles slowed and stopped. They could not follow. They had failed again. 400 years ago, they had failed to destroy the Kiyama. Today, they had failed to destroy it again. Some things, it seemed, were simply too stubborn to die. The Kiyama limped through space toward human territory. Its hull was damaged, its systems strained, its ancient frame pushed beyond what should have been possible. But it was alive. Against all odds, after 400 years of silence, the heavenly horse was finally coming home. Jisoo sat in the pilot's chair, too exhausted to move. Beside him, Eunji had fallen asleep at her station, her head resting on the console. Behind them, the bodies of the original crew still sat at their posts, but somehow their presence felt different now. Not tragic, honored. Ambassador Taiwu has been sending messages, Nari reported. "He witnessed our escape. He has contacted the Human Republic government and told them what we found. Are we in trouble? That depends on who you ask. Legally, we are pirates who stole a ship from Vrelian custody. Diplomatically, we are heroes who recovered a priceless piece of human history." Nari's voice carried something that might have been amusement. "The government is still deciding which version they prefer. They found out 2 hours later when the Kiama crossed into human space. Jisu had expected to be greeted by police ships. Maybe a military vessel sent to arrest them. What he saw instead made him forget how to breathe. 12 ships waited at the border. Not police. Not military. An honor guard. They were civilian vessels, mostly cargo haulers and passenger liners and private yachts, but they flew in perfect formation, their running lights blazing. As the Kiama approached, they split apart, creating a corridor of light for the ancient ship to pass through. "What is this?" Yunji whispered. She had woken up and was staring at the view screen with tears in her eyes. "Ambassador Taiwo's message spread quickly," Nari replied. The news services picked it up. By now, every human in the galaxy knows that the Kioma has returned. The ships began to broadcast. Voices filled the communication channels, overlapping and jumbled, but the message was clear. "Welcome home. Welcome home. Welcome home." Jisu covered his face with his hands and wept. The journey to Earth took 3 weeks. The Kiama could not travel fast in its damaged state, and Jisu refused to transfer to a faster ship. He had promised to bring the Kiama home, and he meant to keep that promise. They were joined along the way by more ships. Historians who wanted to document the voyage. Scientists who wanted to study the ancient technology. Journalists who wanted to tell the story. And ordinary people who simply wanted to be part of something historic. By the time they reached Earth's solar system, they were leading a fleet of over 200 vessels. The landing was broadcast across the galaxy. Billions of beings watched as the Kiama descended through Earth's atmosphere for the first time in 4 centuries. It touched down at the same spaceport from which it had originally launched, on a pad that had been preserved as a memorial for the ship that never came back. Jisu walked down the boarding ramp into sunlight and crowds. Yunji followed him, shielding her eyes from the brightness. Neither of them had seen a real sun in years. Government officials waited at the bottom of the ramp. Military officers, reporters, descendants of the original crew, their eyes wide with disbelief and joy. An old woman pushed through the crowd. She was at least 90 years old, supported by 2 younger relatives, but her eyes were sharp and her voice was strong. "My grandmother was on that ship," she said. "Navigation Officer Bora. I have her picture. I've had it my whole life." Jisu nodded. "I know where she is. I'll take you to her." The reunion between the descendants and their ancestors was private. Jisu arranged for the bodies to be carefully removed from the ship and prepared for burial. Each crew member was identified. Each was given a proper ceremony. Each was finally, after 400 years, laid to rest on the world they had died to protect. Captain Yuna was buried with full military honors. Her grave was placed on a hill overlooking the sea, with a view of the stars she had explored. The inscription on her tombstone was simple. "She kept us safe." The government offered Jisu everything: money, fame, a position in the Historical Preservation Department, a medal named after Captain Yuna herself. He refused most of it. "I don't want rewards," he told the officials. "I want promises. I want the Kiama preserved as a museum, not stripped for study. I want Nari to remain active, to tell visitors the story of her crew. And I want resources to search for other lost ships." Other lost ships? The Kiama wasn't the only first-wave vessel that disappeared. There are dozens more out there, waiting to be found, waiting to come home. The government agreed. A year later, Jisoo stood on the bridge of the restored Kioma, now a museum visited by millions. Yoonji stood beside him, wearing a new uniform, chief engineer of the first wave recovery project. "I still can't believe this is my life," she said. "A year ago, I was fixing broken drones in a junkyard. Now I'm leading expeditions to find legendary starships. Regrets? Not one." She smiled at him. "You?" Jisoo looked around the bridge. Children were walking through, listening to Nari explain how the navigation system worked. A group of students was taking notes on the ancient Korean writing. An old man stood before Captain Yuna's chair, saluting silently. "No," Jisoo said. "No regrets." "I have a question," Yoonji said. "When you walked into my shop that first day, why did you think I would help you? You had no money. You had no proof. You just had a crazy story about a ghost ship." Jisoo thought about it. "I don't know," he admitted. "I just knew that if anyone would understand, it would be someone who kept their grandmother's engineering manuals even when they had nothing else. Someone who put a Korean sign above their door on a station where no one else could read it. Someone who refused to forget where they came from. And if I had said no, then I would have found another way. Or I would have failed. But I had to try." Yoonji nodded. "That's what I thought you'd say." Nari's voice echoed through the bridge, interrupting them. "I have detected something interesting in the old navigation logs. A reference to another first wave ship, the Baiko, the White Tiger. According to the records, it was exploring a system near the galactic rim when contact was lost." Jisoo and Yoonji looked at each other. "How far?" Jisoo asked. 6 months of travel. Perhaps more. The region is unexplored and potentially dangerous. Are you suggesting we go looking for it? I am suggesting nothing. Nari's voice was warm. I am simply noting that the Kiama was an exploration vessel. We were built to find what was lost in the darkness. If a human wanted to continue that mission, I would be honored to help. Yoonji was already heading for the door. I'll start preparing the expedition. Jisoo lingered on the bridge a moment longer. He walked to the view screen and looked out at the visitors, walking through the memorial gardens below. Families, students, historians, dreamers. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for waiting, for believing someone would come." "Thank you," Nari replied, "for being the one who did." Jisoo smiled and walked off the bridge. There were other ships out there. Other crews who had never come home. Other stories waiting to be told, and he was going to find them all.